I'm joined now by J.C. Polanco, a law professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent, and political consultant Trip Yang. Gentlemen, we have a mayor's race that every day there's more drama. Let's start with Mayor Adams. And will he, won't he take a job, not take a job, get out of the race, stay in the race? Have we heard the last of it?
I don't think so. I think the mayor has made it clear that he's going to take his own private poll. I'm sure the methodology is going to be on point, and he's going to see how he's doing. And if he's in the single digits, I think he's going to reassess. The truth is, look, the mayor has dedicated his life to the city, 2 decades as an NYPD officer. He served as state senator, borough president, and now as mayor. He served a great deal, and I think there were maybe some bad hands, maybe some self-inflicted wounds, maybe some mistakes. But he'll do what's best for the city. And I think that the mayor's going to see the single digits, and he does not want to be a spoiler in this race.
For someone who talks a lot about grinding, no distractions, stay focused, Mayor Adams continues to be a distraction to the mayor's race and the city of New York. Because quite frankly, we know he's not going to be the mayor in a couple months. I do not think he'll be here in the mayor's race actively campaigning a month from now. It seems like he's negotiating with the Trump administration on a job offer. So that's closer to a one-on-one with Mamdani and Cuomo. But quite frankly, in any scenario, Mayor Adams is just not an electoral factor anymore.
So here's the question. It's too late to get anybody's name off the ballot. So people are going to go into the ballot booth or get their early votes or get their mail-in ballots, and they're going to see a whole bunch of people, not just the people that we know, but there's like Paperboy Prince and all these other people who are going to have their names on the ballot. Does it matter that Adams will still be on the ballot, that Curtis Lewa will still be on the ballot?
It doesn't really matter. Because quite frankly, voters actually exhibit pretty smart behavior. When a candidate is no longer viable, is no longer actively campaigning, voters realize that, they sense that, they don't want to spoil their vote. We saw this in June. For example, at the time, Jessica Ramos, whose name was still in the Democratic primary, by the time she basically said, I am endorsing Cuomo, I'm no longer actively campaigning, when it came time to Election Day, she got less than 1%. So it doesn't really matter at that point.
Well, I disagree, and I'll tell you why. You know, there are a lot of us that are hoping for a buzzer beater, and we hope that it's a close election, and every vote counts. It's unfortunate that the names are going to still be on because they're going to inevitably take some votes, not maybe in large numbers because of what Tripp mentions, that voters are smart. But it is going to be a problem, especially if you are Andrew Cuomo and you want to make this close and you see hundreds of votes, or thousands maybe, going to places that candidates are no longer campaigning. It's one of the major issues, and it will be a problem.
So Andrew Cuomo this past week has started the campaign to make it seem like there's only 2 people in the race.
Right.
He went on, he had a press conference. He says it doesn't matter. Essentially, it's going to be a 2-person race. Do you think that New Yorkers are going to buy that argument that they should choose one from column A and one from column B and forget about column C, D, E, F, G, and however many other people are on the ballot?
That's a great question, Marcia. It all depends on what Curtis Lewa does. Curtis Lewa is still on the ballot. Curtis Lewa is not leaving this race. Curtis Lewa is still getting around 15 to 20% on whatever poll you're watching, and it will be detrimental to any hope that we have for there to be a one-on-one. If, and this is what I consider, again, Curtis Lewa, you're listening. Andrew Cuomo, you're listening. Whoever is on top on October 1st has to really think about this. If you're still polling really low and you have no shot of winning, consider supporting the other candidate so that we can get a one-on-one somehow. It looks like it's going to be Andrew Cuomo. I think that Curtis Lewa loves the city a great deal. If Curtis Lewa sees what we're all thinking, he may consider doing the unthinkable, and that's getting out of the race.
Curtis Lewa is a major problem for Andrew Cuomo because unlike Eric Adams, who seems like you could really get him to make a decision if you have a job offer or maybe some Turkish Airlines tickets, Curtis Lewa, you cannot buy Curtis Lewa. He's not a traditional Republican. He does not have any love for Donald Trump or the MAGA movement. So Curtis Lewa is an independent actor. He's really a thorn to Andrew Cuomo's side.
But you say bye. Curtis Lewa's going to text me when he sees this and he's going to get upset. I'm telling you, Curtis Lewa, you're a superstar. You quit in Central New York. I know you've given your life and career to New York City. I'm putting a position. I'm painting a position where this race is very close between Andrew Cuomo and Assemblyman Mamdani, and there's a shot that this may not happen. Maybe he'd think it up. But bye? Why would you say bye? That implies quid pro quo.
What I am saying, JC, simply is that Curtis Lewa cannot be bought.
He's not going to be bought.
And that is a problem for Andrew Cuomo.
Let me just ask you this question about Lewa. So on Friday, the President of the United States was in New York City, and he basically said, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, Curtis Lewa is not ready for prime time. And now you have the President of the United States, who is a Republican, who Republicans in New York listen to and respect. How much does that hurt Curtis Sliwa's brand here in New York as the Republican candidate for mayor?
Yeah, there certainly is no love lost between Sliwa and President Trump. Sliwa famously said earlier this summer, President Trump, please stay away from the mayor's race.
So you're trying to say that that helps Curtis Sliwa or hurts Curtis Sliwa?
It hurts Curtis Sliwa a little bit. Clearly, Andrew Cuomo is Donald Trump's preferred candidate. Donald Trump wants a one-on-one, but the problem is, the problem is, JC. But look, the problem is, the Boston Red Sox are more popular in New York City than Donald Trump.
I think COVID-19 is more popular than Donald Trump in many
I agree with you on that.
Red Sox fans are going.
No, give me a break. Listen, I want to make sure that your viewers understand that having a Mayor Mamdani is a dream for President Trump and the Republicans. Mayor Mamdani will be the albatross against the necks of every single purple district Democrat across the country, purple districts in the Congress and purple states. So stop saying that President Trump doesn't want a Mayor Mamdani. Mayor Mamdani is a gift that keeps on giving for Republicans nationally.
Mayor Mamdani is going to be a dream for all of us working middle class, ascending New Yorkers who want a city that's more affordable,
and for those
fast and free, more affordable housing. You're right. It is going to be a dream.
He's a dream for the new transplants and gentrifiers that are supporting him by over 65% of the vote.
Because
they're the first ones that are going to leave when the tax bill comes in. Right.
Let me just wait. Let's talk about one thing though. You know, to your point about Mayor Mamdani, should he win? The bottom line is that he wants to tax what he calls billionaires. But let's talk about some numbers, for example. 1% of the people in New York City pay 60% of the taxes. If you drive these people out, how are you going to run the city? You could go first, because I know
it's impossible. Marcia, that's why I can't believe New Yorkers voted for this in June in a closed party primary. Look, these are the people that can easily leave and go to another state that's not taxing them like this. And we need those funds for social services. You say you don't like them, they shouldn't exist, and now you're going to tax them more than ever before. They simply go somewhere else. It is short-sighted. It is inexperienced at its very best.
Trip.
I give Zohran Mamdani and the Mamdani campaign a lot of credit.
Of course,
because this summer, this fall, he has met with a lot of business leaders, a lot of business executives.
Yeah, but they haven't endorsed him.
But crucially, they have not given money to Andrew Cuomo. They gave tens of millions of dollars to Andrew Cuomo leading up to June.
But excuse me, 80 of them met with Andrew Cuomo just this past week at the pool room at the Seagram's building.
Well,
we have a minute left. So
it feels like the enthusiasm for Andrew Cuomo right now in September is nowhere near as much as it was back in June.
Because your candidate has the press in his pocket. That's why.
IE. However, Mayor Bloomberg recently met with Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani
he didn't endorse him either.
He didn't endorse him either.
Zohran is very disciplined, very friendly, and he's telling folks, hey, if I'm mayor, I want to work with you.
30 seconds left.
Zohran Mamdani is incredibly inexperienced, and we haven't had an opportunity to vote independents, Republicans, blanks. All these other people have not had an opportunity to vote. We're going to make our voices heard in November.
So you have like 15 seconds left. Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, Zohran Mamdani is going to win in November. And when we get here in 2026, I think a lot of people are going to be pleasantly surprised. He is going to be someone who is a visionary, positive leader.
Based on what?
Okay. We'll have to leave it right there for now, but we will be right back. We are back with law professor J.C. Polanco and political consultant Trip Yang. So here's my question. One of the hanging chads in the mayor's race is the fact that all the big kahunas in the Democratic Party, from Governor Hochul to Senator Schumer to Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and even Carl Hastie, the Speaker in the Assembly, have yet to endorse in this race. Why not?
Because they're very smart people. That's how they got to where they are. And they understand what I'm saying on your program, which is Assemblyman Mamdani, if he were to become mayor, would be an albatross around the necks of very hard to win districts and purple districts across the country that they need in order to win the majority. You cannot get to the majority without purple districts.
So we're talking about the 2026 congressional
we're talking about the 2026 midterms. Look, and in 2028, look, the commercials will write themselves. You have an assemblyman who's on video, and he's clearly pushing decriminalization of prostitution. He's clearly trashing the police officers. He's talking about, this is important, seizing the means of production. He's talking about things that are just absolutely insane and are so out of this world to the left that I think, and I said it before, Fidel Castro will tell him, slow down there, Assemblyman, because they're so far left. And he can't, because he's
I'm very polite, so Jason can finish.
He lives in a silo where everything is like this echo chamber they live in.
He's like chewing on his tongue. He can't wait to talk to you.
is much bigger than New York City. When you take that kind of nonsense in a purple district, I guarantee you President J.D. Vance, and look, Akim Jeffries understands this, and so does Speaker Hastie and everyone else.
Go ahead, Trump.
So I'll get a minute, 2 minutes if I can, to respond to my good friend JC's response. My friend JC is simply wrong here. A lot of the leaders of the Democratic Party, immediately when Zohran Mamdani won the primary, and gradually since, Congress members Jerry Nadler, Adriano Espaillat, County Leader in Brooklyn, Ranis Bashat, almost all of the labor unions like HTC and
By the time we get to November, do any of these people endorse? By the time we get to November, will any of these people
You will see more and more of the Democratic leaders. Each leader that you mentioned.
Does Kathy Hochul ever endorse Mamdani?
I can't speak for Governor Hochul. I do know, I will say this. What Governor Hochul and Leader Jeffries, what they've done is that they've actually defended Mamdani when he gets attacked by Donald Trump. When it comes,
I defend Mamdani when they attack
well,
him.
Thank you so much. You can defend him a little bit more.
I will attack him
every time.
Every time there's an Islamophobic, I will stand up for you, Assemblyman. On your policies, I will never stand up for you. And this is the situation that these members
endorse.
No, I don't think she will, and she shouldn't.
But she speaks well of him, and she does not compliment Cuomo.
Well, she has to work with whoever the mayor is.
Yes, that's exactly the case.
Yes. But I will say, crucially, you have to look at how they talk about all the candidates in the field. Just recently, this month, Governor Hochul said, Zohran Mamdani is the one who's been reaching out to me, and he's the one we've been having dialogue. She's not said that about Adams or Cuomo.
Let me ask you one question. Do you really think in the realm of reality, given what happened and the way Andrew Cuomo treated her when she was the lieutenant governor, that they're going to really have a meeting of the minds?
Cuomo was very much a bully. I'm glad we can all agree on that. New Yorkers sense that. But
do you agree with that?
I'm not agreeing. He was on my podcast. He says he's not a bully, he told me. I take him at his word.
I simply don't believe him.
You're having such a good time. The truth is this. Every single one of these Democrats that supported Assemblyman Mamdani right after supporting former Governor Cuomo during the primary, it looked like a hostage video. I just wanted them to be like, could you just blink and tell me you need help?
It was like
it was a hostage rap. It was a hostage video.
To endorse
all right, it was a video where like, please don't primary me. Please, DSA, don't primary me. I'm supporting your guy. That's what it was. And I could see it in their faces, the terror that they were experiencing. Just like, look, the DSA is a bunch of bullies.
They actually looked very happy.
They're primarying anyone who doesn't get in line. Big Tent.
You can join.
I'm not joining.
You've supported Democrats before.
I have supported them.
JC. Don't you want some fast and free buses? Come on.
No, it's silly.
Whoa, let me ask you a question. Do you think in the realm of reality, getting away from your political viewpoints, that Kathy Hochul, who has to run for re-election in a tough race and could face either Elise Stefanik or Bruce Blakeman or a candidate still to be determined, but I think it's going to be one of them, that she can afford to, given the fact of the race and the statewide contest, that she can afford to endorse Mamdani before the election?
She's going to work with him.
I didn't ask
endorsement is a personal decision, right?
I didn't ask you whether she could work with him. I asked you whether she's going to endorse him.
Honestly, I don't think that question matters that much.
Oh, I think any question that Marcia Kramer asks
she praises Mamdani frequently. By the way, on issues like redistricting, taking the fight to Trump, they've worked and collaborated together.
She's not endorsing him. Every question Marcia Kramer asks is important and it's relevant. And I say no, she's not going to do it. And I'll tell you why, Marcia. If you take a look outside of New York City, it's ruby red. And all Stefanik would need here in New York City and in Long Island is anywhere from 35 to 40%, and she could be the next governor. Do you think Governor Hochul?
That's not.
Do you think Governor Hochul is going to? Sure, it is.
A lot of areas in the state are Democratic.
Look,
the Hudson Valley, for example. Westchester is more and more Democratic.
I said outside of this area here. Look,
Buffalo, Rochester,
ruby red.
Syracuse, heavily Democratic.
I understand, but Long Island is more Republican than ever before, and you know it. And I think it's very clear. Governor Hochul knows what she's doing. She wouldn't get to be governor unless she knew. So she knows that this would be a mistake, and I'm sure that Assemblyman Mamdani would appreciate her honesty and not force an endorsement.
You don't need to always agree on everything when you're leaders in the Democratic Party. We have a Big Tent party. We have great leaders, Hochul, Leader Jeffries, and the soon-to-be mayor, Mamdani.
I love the way
I got to tell you, honestly, the people at the end of the day, you know, one of the things that concerns me is that we have a lot of voters that haven't had the opportunity. In the low teens, that's all that's come out so far to vote in the last week of June in a close party primary. The rest of us haven't come out to vote. The numbers haven't been casted yet. There's still an opportunity here for another candidate to post.
Then why is Mamdani leading the polls by over 20 points?
Because you have a fraction opposition. You have 4 different candidates running. If we have a consolidation of that, then it becomes a very interesting
Maybe if they should all listen to you, this race will be more
let's talk
competitive.
about one thing about Mamdani's appeal. One of the things that I've been thinking about over the last several weeks is wondering whether the fact that there was so much corruption in the Adams administration from the beginning, picking Phil the other Banks, Phil Banks to be the deputy mayor for public safety, and the questions that were raised about him when he worked for Bill de Blasio. Do you think that the steady drip of the corruption made people think, they looked at Mamdani and he was like a bright, shiny penny.
Yeah.
He didn't have any corruption. He was young. He thought outside the box. And they thought, we need a change. We don't want politics as usual.
Yeah.
We want something different. Do you think that was part of his appeal?
I'm sure it was, but remember, Marcia, you're talking about a closed party primary. That's all we're talking about in the last week of June. November hasn't come around. We haven't had an opportunity to have a full vote for all of us to have a say.
Spoken like a true independent.
No, but it's true. Like, Democrats had a situation where they had a former governor that was not campaigning as hard as he should have. He's admitted that on every show that I've seen, including my podcast and yours. And check this out. You had a guy who was using social media like no one else, who was exciting, who was a happy warrior, who was charismatic, smart, smile. You keep saying thinking outside the box. The ideas are not outside the box. These ideas are Karl Marxist. This is nothing new. The idea no, they are Marxist ideas. So the ideas of seizing the means.
Gentleman, he can finish.
No, the idea of seizing the means of production, the idea of decommodifying housing, those are not new things. These are not new. Taxing people to get out of a hole, that's not new. What he did was that he put it in a way that was so exciting, and it excited enough Democrats that he brought in and excited new voters. He made 25,000 new voters that were his. No one could beat him on charisma. 25% of the votes that came in were his.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Marcia, you're absolutely right. The stench of corruption from Eric Adams, it continues every single month. New revelations, of course. Mamdani juxtaposed himself with not only the corrupt Adams administration, but also Andrew Cuomo's gloom and doom campaign from the primary. It felt like it was the 1980s with crime out of control from Andrew Cuomo's primary campaign. Nowadays, Andrew Cuomo's had 2 cups of coffee. He puts out these sunny videos. I don't believe it. Look, Mamdani is not just winning with voters, but he's also crucially winning with independents, because New Yorkers across the spectrum want a more affordable New York. His message discipline is second to none.
No, it's like I said, message discipline, second to none is how you get there. Look, we are forgetting one thing about your drip, drip, drip. The drip, drip, drip muted all of Mayor Adams' successes. Mayor Adams, we could look at his crime reduction in New York City have been remarkable. Economic development in New York City has been remarkable. The decisions that Mayor Eric Adams made about who he surrounded himself with destroyed any chance for re-election. And it was continued the drip, drip, drip. Today, when he says, look at crime, look at the jobs, look at this, nothing matters because of all of these years of fearing about corruption. That's unfortunate.
Do you think he's not getting the credit for the things he's done?
I'll say this. I'll say this. I'll give a very nuanced take. Eric Adams, as a messenger, as a leader, has been an abject failure. However, he has made some smart hiring decisions. So I'll list a couple names. Planning Commissioner Dan Garanik, for example. The Police Commissioner, currently Jessica Tisch, who many folks want the next mayor to keep, has brought about confidence back in the NYPD.
But what about his accomplishments? I mean, as JC points out, he does have accomplishments. So why are people not giving him credit for that?
So he has, as administration, he has some accomplishments, particularly as it pertains to housing. Right, the city of yes. However, people often give Garanik, and I'll say this, the former first deputy commissioner, first deputy mayor, right, Maria Torres Springer, they often give them the credit because they are the top public officials doing the work. Eric Adams gets credit for hiring them. Does he deserve a little bit of credit on the policy level? Maybe, but a lot of people were involved in that success. The council, for example, was involved in that as well. When you have a culture of corruption and stench, it really muddies your personal image and how people view your legacy.
Mayor Adams would have sailed to re-election with no problem had he surrounded himself initially with the right people, had he stayed out of trouble, and then once the people around him got in trouble, well, the people around him would have gotten in trouble. He should have just kept them away, but he keeps bringing them around. Big mistake, and he's going to look back and maybe write a book about it. Let's
switch the topic. I'd like to talk to you about political violence and the fact that we had this past week the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And it seems to be that there's been a pattern of political violence in our country. Not going back to the 60s when JFK was assassinated, but recently, you've had Nancy Pelosi's husband and the Minnesota lawmakers and a whole bunch of attacks on people. What is going on in this country that we feel it's open season on anybody who has an elective office?
Our leaders are irresponsible with their words. Words matter. Both sides of the aisle, all ideologies are responsible for this. None can play the role of Pontius Pilate and wash their hands of all sins. And they have to look inward and stop this madness, because whenever they speak the way they do, whenever they say, let's go fight the way they do, whenever we've seen it in January 6th, we saw it with the assassination of the senator in Minnesota. We see it regularly. And it's about time that we stop this nonsense. And I think that this recent killing breaks my heart. He has 2 kids. They're going to be raised without a dad. He was a young husband. Regardless of if you like what he said or not, no one deserves to be assassinated. And I'd rather hear everyone come and ask for peace. Political violence is a cancer in our society. And unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of people take advantage of this moment in time to just flame the fires and make things worse.
How do we stop all the hate?
Look, political violence, the country being polarized, it is an epidemic. It is a cancer. Of course it has to stop. What happened this week was a tragedy.
But how? How do you
First,
stop it?
I will say this. The country has been more polarized. The one part I'll agree with my friend JC on is that a lot of our leaders, public sector, private sector, they just have to cool the rhetoric. We have to be able to respectfully disagree. Look, JC and I, we often disagree on many, many things. I'll get a beer with JC. We have to bring that sense of normalcy back. I will say this, though. We have to condemn the killing and the shooting. That is the most important thing. There is probably one person in this country who's been polarizing Americans much more than anyone else in the past decade. I think we all know who it is. So it is not a both sides are equally responsible. There is one leader who's been the worst at this.
I think both
we have
sides
to condemn
are.
the killings,
No,
of course.
that one leader that you're talking about, who I'm not a fan of, there was 2 attempts at his life just within this year.
And that is reprehensible as well, absolutely.
No, yeah, I understand, but remember Steve Scalise gets almost assassinated on a baseball field
I think that we can
by a
say
Bernie
that
Sanders supporter.
They've been attacked by Democrats and Republicans. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
I mean, there's
Take a
open
look on-
season on people in politics. The question is, why do we in this country feel it's okay to try to attack our leaders if we don't agree with
Because
them?
our leaders participate. Our leaders participate in the anger and the vitriol.
Why can't they just discuss that they don't agree? Why do they have to shoot them?
Because it doesn't get you likes, it doesn't get you retweets, it doesn't get you fans, it doesn't get you subscribes on YouTube, it doesn't get you the...
So social media is to
Social
blame?
media is a cancer, and like the governor of Utah mentions today, Cox, he said it. This is a cancer on society. Go on Twitter today, take out the comments, and look at how people address me for talking about the way I am about Assemblyman Mamdani and his policies. Take a look how people would talk about anyone who doesn't like Donald Trump. Look with your eyes and see how people talk to each other. That vitriol comes out, and we see it in the violence that we see daily.
There's also the scourge of gun violence. Quite frankly, many of these states outside of New York, is very, very easy to get a gun, even if you have a record. And so many of these things, many of these reprehensible actions come from shootings. We have to have gun safety in our country that's universal.
And we're getting desensitized. We have children getting murdered in schools, and then it is happening regularly. There's a desensitization going on right now, especially when the video of Charlie Kirk going around. What a shame. Can't believe I saw that video. It breaks my heart every day.
So the question is, how do you bring people together? I mean, what struck out in my mind was this. So on Thursday of this past week, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer had a joint press conference, and they were attacking the president and his policies, especially the big beautiful bill and the cuts that would happen to health care and SNAP, food benefits and things like that. And then they were asked about what happened to Charlie Kirk. And they said, well, we have to bring people together, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, but as Americans. A good sentiment, but how do you, on the one hand, try to excoriate everything the Republicans did and then turn around and say, oh, but we have to come together as Americans in the same press conference?
I think you could do it by saying we disagree on this policy, but don't disagree on who this individual is. Look, President Trump and Hakeem Jeffries disagree on policy, but both have to say we're good Americans and we love the American people. We want to take us to the right place. We just disagree on how we do it. But right now, when you listen to what's happening, it's personal attack after personal attack. It's the Democrats are the worst thing that ever happened. It's us against the Democrats. Everything is seen through a partisan prism. And it's a real danger when we don't come together.
I said you can walk and chew gum at the same time. Absolutely, in the same conversation, you say we have these policy disagreements. However, I believe that individual is stoking the fuel of hatred here in America. And they're right, that one individual, you can say his name if you want, he absolutely is the primary reason for polarization in this country in the last decade.
I know he's just making it worse. I understand. But to think that this wasn't happening before President Trump is insane. This was happening.
It's happened.
This is. I know
for a
that he's
long time,
contributed to this, and he should stop. No, I understand, but he should stop. He should be the leader that we need right now and bring everyone together. I agree with you.
I think that everyone should just join us. Democrats, Republicans, join JC and I. We get some happy hour. We go downtown, Upper West Side, any neighborhood.
We'll have a beer.
Let's do it. Let's do it, Marcia.
He can end it today. I think President Trump is so powerful right now that he himself can end all of this today. And if he wanted to, he could. He could bring everyone together and say, let's just stop it right now. And hopefully that's what he will do.
JC, Polanco, Trip Yang, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you
at home for joining us as well.